Hello, Kulkarni sir. Dr. A.J. Kulkarni sir, shall we start?
1 minute, sir.
Okay, sir.
So we will start, sir.
Yes, sir.
हाँ शुरू करा.
Good
Okay, sir.
afternoon, one and all. I, Professor Yashwant Pawar, welcome today's eminent speaker, respected Mrs. Saili Bidwai, respected Dr. Kailash Karande, Principal SKNSCOE College of Engineering, Pandharpur, respected Dr. S.G. Kulkarni, Vice Principal of the college, all the faculties, and my dear student friends. Department of Civil Engineering and Civil Engineering Students Association, CESA, in association with Institutions Innovation Council, IIC, SKNSCOE College of Engineering, Pandharpur, organizes a webinar on how to plan for startup and legal and ethical steps. I request Head of Department, Dr. S.S. Kadam, to introduce today's eminent speaker and highlight the purpose of today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Pawar sir. So nowadays, central government gives more focus on stand-up India, startup India. So we should not depend on any other country for the technology purpose. Right now, we are finding the scarcity of semiconductor chip, which is mainly used in vehicles. So if we work on this aspect, so it will provide a boost to our economy. So definitely this webinar help us to achieve whatever be the startup goal decided by the institute. So now today I will give the introduction of today's guest. So today's guest, Mrs. Saili Bidwai, awarded as a Distinguished Assistant Professor by Computer Society of India in 15 January 2017. Indian achievers this award for excellence education in 2021-22. So MOU done with Center of Excellence of E-Infochips Training and Research Organization, and revenue generated is 9.4 lakhs. Duration is July 2015 to June 2018. MOU with T-Lab Global Ahmedabad for training consultancy projects, internship and placements in IT domain. Also, Madam worked as an intellectual property associate and domain expert in an IP firm. Executive Director of Samruddhi Technologies Business Incubator, through which encouraged and holding through which Madam encouraged and to start up the total 8 startup was started. Best participant of the training program, advances in signal processing using VLSI. Madam is pursuing PhD from VTU University, Belgium, and research area is hybrid architecture for network on chip. Also, Madam had some achievement, certificate in IP commercialization and licensing from RG&IIPM in association with Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai. Total 16 years of academic experience, 3 years as a IPR expert, specialization in patent drafting and litigation, worked with different MNCs, foreign clients, and local industries as well. Also, Madam act as a IPR expert in Institute Innovation and Startup Policy of KIT's College of Engineering, Kolhapur. Act as a tutor for the course on IPR law for Orena Solutions Private Limited and Udemy Tutor. Also, Madam has published eight publications, out of which 4 are in Scoopus Index Journal, attended many national and international conferences, conducted FDP STTP workshop for students. Total revenue generated greater than 12 lakh. So such personality is with us. I welcome today's chief guest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We have a good opportunity to listen to such learned person. I request Dr. Kailash Karande, sir, to guide regarding today's webinar.
So, sir is busy with some work. So this is Institution Innovation Council's program. And from last 2 years, we are observing various programs of Institution Innovation Council. They are giving boost for the innovations, creativity, design thinking, and startups, etc. So, as per the message of principal, sir, I request Pidwai madam for start the session. Once again, on behalf of the Civil Engineering Department, SKNSCOE College, welcome you, madam. Thank you very much.
So is the screen visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Thank you all. I thank the management and the coordinators of the institute and this program for choosing such a topic wherein I can share some insights onto planning of a startup and some legal and ethical steps we can discuss upon. I would like to start with a sentence by Neil Armstrong. It's one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind. I wish he must have thought of it when he had put his first foot in on moon. So it was a very simple step for him to be on moon, but for the all mankind, the way inventions and developments in terms of technology happened, it was the proof of that. Though it was seen in the videos and photos that he stepped on moon, that it's merely a single sentence we can put it into. But actually, it was the work of a big community, technocrats, and many scientists and engineers behind it who made that possible. So, why I have chosen this sentence is to showcase the same philosophy is even applicable for uh, an entrepreneur. Any of his decision will benefit or affect adversely on the whole community which is associated with that organization. So if it is in positive direction, if the decision of that one person is in positive direction, it is surely going to benefit a huge community. So with this positive thought, we'll see during this presentation the philosophy of startup, the idea what exactly is startup. Then eventually we'll see what are the eligibility criterias, then how do we have to register for a startup, and then what are the legal arrangement and aspects one should consider while going through the process, how a person or how especially students can strategically plan during their engineering course for having their own startups, and the role of IIC and NISP and the engineering colleges in this journey of starting a business impact the life of an engineer. So this is how we'll walk through in the same small steps of the startups. Let us first try to understand why we all are speaking about it. Why startup? It's not only the buzzword which we keep listening from here and there and loudly and many times. Uh, so instead of going in technical definition of it now, let us talk about some famous startups. Uber. We have all used, seen, and know the facilities provided by Uber. So this had been the world's best startup in its times. It's actually a 6-year-old company, in fact, whose weekly revenue is about $20 million, and its founder, Travis, has been included in many ratings which sort the richest people in the world. So he has been one of the richest people in the world. Now, despite the fact that this is only a 6-year-old company, it has not yet become public. And on the other hand, it has become a serious business. So, when incepted, it was simply a concept. What they did is addressed a simple problem, that if I have to go somewhere, how do I search a cab? How do I search an auto rickshaw? So it was the simple problem, and addressing to which not only Uber, Ola has also come, and not only cars or cabs. Now auto rickshaws are being, booked. They are being used, and on the contrary, both of the companies do not have their own single vehicle for this purpose. They simply have a model of business which works by taking into account somebody else's vehicles. Somebody else will drive, someone else will travel through it. I mean, thousands of people travel through it. So the simple idea of addressing a crucial problem has now become one of the richest company. Now, this is about the world's best startup. Let us come to India's best startup. A company called Byju's, which was established in 2011 by a teacher who was teaching online, like Baiju Ravindran. So he used to take, in a layman language, he used to take tuitions online. But then he and his team thought of having the whole setup of teaching school kids, college going students, and who not. So they have started this campaign like anything, and now it is worth 3.5 billion. Okay, so Baiju Ravindran has become the youngest billionaire with net worth of 3.05 billion dollars. It's not in rupees. Okay, and currently the startup is having valuation of 22 billion dollars. Now just imagine, uh, what what do we learn from both the examples? Both are startups. Byju's has just come out of the status of a startup because 10 years have been elapsed. But Uber is still a startup. Now we understand. Instead of asking a question, why startup, now you should think, why not a startup? If I'm going to address a simple idea, if I'm going to establish my own business with mere small amount of investment, and if that idea is going to give me this big revenue in return, then why not a startup? Yes, surely will have. So let us start knowing about it. What exactly is a startup? Though I have mentioned a very typical technical or techno legal definition of a startup here, in simple words, we can put it like startup is a new entrepreneur venture. It means a new company that aims to meet a marketplace with a thread of need. That startup has identified some need in the marketplace, it has identified some problem to be addressed, and how they are addressing, by developing or offering an innovative product, process, or service. Very precisely, I have highlighted the word innovative. It means whatsoever is the product, whatsoever is the.
Madam, excuse me, slides are not changing.
Is it?
Slides are not changing. Now it is changing.
Now just tell me once again, sir. Is it changing now?
No, now it is not changing. Just. Yeah, now it is changing.
Just a moment, sir. I'll change its settings. So you'll have this kind of display itself. I think when I click on slideshow, it's not showing any reflection in the screen, but that's okay. So we were here. Shall I continue, sir, now?
Yes, madam.
Okay. So we were talking about what a startup is. It is merely a new venture that has come up by addressing a particular problem, and they're offering an innovative solution in terms of either a product or a process or a service. That's what is called as a startup. Innovation is an inherent part of a startup. This is what I wanted to highlight here. Now, which kind of company can be called as a startup? So there are some criteria related to its age, type, turnover, and the kind of entity, and whether it is innovative and scalable or not. So let us see one by one. If the company which has been incepted, if it does not exceed 10 years from its incorporation, then it can be called as a startup. It means if I register a company today, so from today till 10 years later, my status, I can call that status of the company as a startup. But once its age goes above 10 years, then it may not be called as a startup. Now, it's not merely about the age. It has got few more conditions as mentioned here. Another condition is the company type. When we incorporate some organization, some company, it has to be either a private limited company or a registered partnership firm or an LLP. LLP is limited liability partnership, or a one person company. Now, what are these? normally we see, I mean, in the perspective of students, I would express it like many a times we see private limited written after the name of any company. So that that company is a sole proprietary of a private firm. So it is a completely private company. Then there can be a partnership firm. If two partners come together and they start a company on name of both of them, then it becomes a partnership firm. If three people, minimum three people or more, come together and establish a company, it is called as a limited liability partnership. And another option which has been taking up boom in recent years is the one person company. So if we don't have any partners, I don't even have to go for a private limited company. Then, and if I have an idea be incorporated. So if these are the types of incorporation along with less than 10 years of inception, then it becomes eligible to be called as a startup. Additionally, there is one more criterion. During these 10 years, the company should have an annual turnover not exceeding 100 crores for any of the financial years. It may so happen that after 4, 5, 6 years, the company starts earning a lot. But if it exceeds 100 crore, even for 1 year, I'm talking about the annual turnover. If it crosses 100 crore, then it loses the uh, status of being called as a startup. So though it is not less than, it is not more exceeding 10 years, though it is a registered company like a private limited or partnership firm or LLP or anything. But if it crosses 100 crore, even for 1 year, it will become an established industry and it is no more a startup. Its meaning is like this. Then it should be an original entity. Means it has been established from zero. It's not the part of any other company which has been cut down, and to avail the benefits of startup, we have registered it as a startup. It should not be this way. Rather, a company should have originated with its sole purpose, newly established company, and not the part or branch of any other big firm. Then, during these 10 years, it should work towards development or improvement of a product. Either it should create its own new products or work on improving the existing product or process or provide any service or have scalable business model. Now, why this terminology has been introduced? Just look at the Uber. They don't have any product, they don't have any process, but they do have a service and have a very, very strong and scalable business model that has an a startup should have high potential for creation of wealth and employment. So it's not only for the production houses, but even if you have a setup which will create employability, which is capable of having, creating a good wealth, then of course it will contribute in not only in the development of the company itself, but in the development of the nation. And then only the nation will stand behind that company to support and flourish. So, in those lines, what the government has done, it has started way back the Startup India campaign. Initially, it used to be called as the Startup India and Stand Up India campaign, under which the government of India had dreamed of building a very strong ecosystem for nurturing innovation and startups. And the main objective behind doing so is to create a sustainable economic growth. Sustainable means it should not be only one peak and then nothing. So the economic growth has to be steady and incremental, and eventually it will generate large scale of employment opportunities. Now in engineering colleges, the scenario what we see is every student is behind hunting a job and serving for somebody else's company. Though it is a brand company, but still most of the students are doing or taking hard efforts to serve somebody else. Now, just imagine in reverse case, on the other hand, if you have a really good idea and if you put the similar efforts for having your own startup, then how much you can flourish, and not only that, how many people you will employ by the end of your graduation year. So this is the difference in perspective, the difference in thinking, which might be there in the agenda of Government of India when they have started with Startup India campaign. Actually, this whole campaign lies on three pillars. They believe in simplification and hand holding for the startups. Simplification in the processes, like for registration, for exit, for any other legal arrangements, and then hand holding, like giving support in terms of incubations and then seed funding and providing many schemes. So, this is a major aspect. Second is funding and incentives. So there are many schemes available in Startup India which will give tax exemption. Then they will provide funding through different options. Then third pillar is the incubation and industry academia partnership. Now, why industry academia and why incubation? We know that uh, for nurturing, for giving the same nutrition and everything, a premature baby is kept in an incubator. So it should get the same treatment which it would get in the womb of its mother. So the same way, a very, newborn startup needs all that facilities, like in terms of internet, computing, funding, guidance, business plan, and everything. So these things will be provided in a single place called as an incubation center. For that, Atal Incubation Center, like there are schemes for incubation centers also, there are fundings available. So the startups who become eligible for that funding through these incubators can avail that facility. And how it can be done, as today's engineers would be working somewhere in industry, if the same engineers will be given these aspects while learning their engineering subjects, they'll surely think of having their own venture, and they can avail the facilities in their institute only. And who is going to give these facilities? So usually the mentor industries will provide such facilities in terms of guidance or resources or tools. So these are the three basic pillars on which the whole Startup India campaign stands. One of the very appreciable scheme of seed fund is Startup India Seed Fund Scheme. So there are some aspects, benefits of this scheme. As I noted, I referred this from the Startup India portal only, and most of the contents that I referred are from the same portal. And why I'm mentioning it? Because if you explore in every option given here, given in that portal, you will come to know there are hundreds of things being happening. There are competitions, there are awards, there are schemes. If you come across in an early stage of your um, incubation, or if when you are thinking of having your own venture, if you come to know about them at very early stage, there are chances that you get benefited more. Because once you establish some firm and then you come to know, array, there was one scheme which I missed. So instead, I'm precisely mentioning from where this data has been referred. So, Startup India Seed Fund Scheme is one of the very good schemes that gives you the year-round call for applications. There is no deadline. Anytime anyone can apply for this seed fund for incubators and startups. So, any incubator or individual startup can go for it. It is sector agnostic. Then no mandatory physical incubation is required. It means if even if I have merely an idea of a startup, and if it is strong enough to be proposed for a funding, then we can apply. It's not mandatory that I should have a big office and its proofs and everything. Then there is something called as a Pan India Startup Program, and there are many companies who are taking benefit from this particular Pan India project. Startups can apply to 3 incubators at the same time. So, whichever incubator is suitable for you, or you get shortlisted for whichever incubator, you can go and get incubated. So you don't need to bring in all your stuff and manufacturing arrangements and anything. So those incubators will give you all kind of support which is needed in the early stage of a startup. So this comes under this particular SISFS scheme. Okay, so we have been talking about the startup, its eligibility, and what are the actual things they are required to be called any firm as a startup. There is one mandatory condition, that even if it is a one-person company or LLP or partnership firm or a private limited, but to be called that as a startup, that startup has to register on DPIIT. I mean, through the Startup India portal only we can do it. The Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade has given a specific certification to which a startup has to register. Once you get this registration done, after your LLP or partnership firm registration, you have to go for DPIIT registration. And once a startup gets this registration, it can avail the benefits as listed. What benefit? The startup patent and IPR applications. Means there is a special treatment given to the patent applications, or even the trademark applications which are filed by the startups. So there are different categories, like an individual person can apply for an IP, or a big company or a small company, then SMEs, MSMEs, or startups. They individually can apply for IPs. Now, IPs will include your patents, industrial designs, then trademark, geographical indications, or models. So, all these things, if a startup is having, the startup will be given priority. Startup will be given flexibility in the rules, concession in the fees. So the flexibility in terms, for example, I would like to quote: if a startup registers, applies for filing a patent, then it will not be charged additional fees if that startup wants to expedite the examination of that patent. So such benefits only a DPIIT registered startup can get. So that's why, though my venture is qualifying all the criteria, it is a startup, but if it is not registered with DPIIT, these benefits will not be applicable to that particular startup. There will be tax exemption under Section 801 AC. then there will be easy winding up of the company. Let's say if with some misfortune a startup doesn't run well, and the founders have to wind up their company, then there are no many complications of winding up in terms of legal or procedural methods. Then another benefit is easy public procurement norms. So if we have to procure something in public, so there will not be stringent norms like they are applicable for any big industries. So these are the benefits which a startup gets when it registers on DPIIT. Okay, so every time for all these four aspects, if one startup is going, they have to produce or submit this DPIIT registration certificate. Then we'll see some legal considerations of a startup. Legal consideration means there will be some forms, some bonds, some papers to be signed, some agreements to be done, some MOUs to be signed among the parties. So, if a group of students come together and they wish to, start a company, then they should be clear in terms that who is going to be the main founder, who will be co-founders, what will be the terms and conditions of investment, what will be the terms and conditions of, distributing the benefits. So these terms have to come in legal terms, I mean on in legal way. Then there will be choice of entity. If anybody comes today and starts thinking of establishing a firm, then it should be pre-decided, it should be thought upon that which type of company that particular startup wants to be. If they are going to be a big firm, then they can go for a private limited. If they don't want, like they don't have a scope of thought process, so they can limit themselves to 1% company or anything like that. So this is how all these terminology should be clear to the startup before going for registration. And during the course of registration, they should make sure that every aspect comes on legal front. It should not be just a word or a discussion. If something is decided and tomorrow you start working on it, it should not be like that. But because if not today, but at some day, that company will grow, it will start fetching money, and then the disputes may occur. So instead of going and resolving those disputes at that stage, we can have clear terms and conditions before beginning itself. There are a lot of considerations, in fact, so I'll not quote everything now. It needs a crystal clear strategic planning. If, my dear students, if you are planning for having your own venture, or even if you did not think of it, but maybe in the course of time, if you get some idea and if you think, then please do have a very good strong strategic planning. You should have some goals in mind. Goals, where do we want to go, I mean exactly what do you want to achieve through your venture. Then what are the expected outcomes. If you have finalized that I would like to see after 5 years, like my revenue will be $20 billion, something like this can be your one of the output. Another would be, you might think of having your company business grown out of India. I mean, you might think of taking an objective like opening offices abroad in, let's say, some specific countries. If this, once this is decided, then you can plan strategies accordingly. If you want this particular amount of revenue generation after 5 years, what should be the first year's target, what should be the second year's target, and are you achieving it or not, you should have a continuous check. So measures and targets are very crucial. How exactly you are going to measure that, what is my turnover? So you should have that softwares, that mechanisms, that expertise, that manpower, HR with you, who will contribute not only in achieving your goals but also measuring it. Okay. Suppose if you fail somewhere, then based on those results, how are you improving? By what measures you are improving to achieve the same goals, because before starting you already had set some goals. To achieve those goals, you will have to consistently put efforts, check, if required do corrections, and then again go towards your goal. So this has to be in a cyclic manner, which will be, reiterating itself, and it will revolve around the mission. You will have some certain steps to be achieved. You need to look at them consistently, check whether you are achieving it or not. So a strategic planning plays a very vital role in success of any startup. Yes, these has been the facilities available by government. There will be information available on some portals. There will be some forms. There will be some legal activities which you may have to follow. But everything has to start from where you are learning. So the government has made it a mandate for every engineering or higher educational institutes, not only engineering but higher educational institutes, to have Institutes Innovation Council. Now the session which I am delivering today is under the same, from your institute. So its motto was to create, I mean, why this has come into picture, why this IIC concept was found. It was to create a vibrant local innovation ecosystem. Now see, why local? We were talking about the schemes and this and that, everything which is available everywhere outside your institute. But there should be something in the institute where, parallel to what you are learning theoretically, you should get an awareness of what exactly innovation is, what kind of ecosystem it needs to convert your innovation into a startup. So basically, its objective was to give support mechanism to the startups, prepare the institute for Atal ranking. See, these Atal ranking or the norms mentioned in NBA or NAC, these things have come into picture for the same objective of having number of startups and entrepreneurial ventures in the nation. So whenever and wherever possible, they have made it compulsory in some or other way. Now, Atal ranking is one of them. It looks after the institute's innovation achievements. Innovation achievements can be counted either in the form of research papers, research grants, patents, then commercialization of IPs, and so on. So if not that, then every engineer, now talking about engineering institutes, everybody will go for NBA. If you go for NBA, there will be again criteria wherein you will have to showcase the proofs of what exactly you are doing for. I mean, there are separate marks allotted for the innovation related and IP related and research related stuff. So I mean to say, this IIC is one of the frameworks which looks after creating the ecosystem so that an innovation can be converted into a startup. Now, similar to this IIC, there is one more policy called as National Innovation and Startup Policy. This policy intends to guide the higher education institutes for promoting student driven innovations and startups, and then further engage the students and faculty in innovation and startup activities in campus only. So it's not only about the students but also the faculty who can be promoted in the institute itself for having their own startups. They're the both the IIC as well as NISP both are having their own uh, set of regulations, their set of suggestions rather, which following to which any institute can um, have their own setups in their own campuses according to the availability of space, funding, and resources. They can start promoting students and faculty for innovation as well as startup. Now, to support this, there will be one incubation center, which is again one of the mandates for higher education institutes, particularly for engineering institutes. We can take help of all these things to nurture, first to start and then to nurture the startups. Then what exactly an institute can do? So with small baby steps like introducing some subjects like design thinking, then prototyping, or some taking some workshops, or faculty development programs or student development programs, short duration programs, uh, based on design thinking or prototyping. Why I'm suggesting to do so is, uh, till the creativity gets started in the brains, it will not start doing any innovation. We cannot expect students to innovate something overnight. It is a gradual process. We have to train the brains to think in that direction. So if we give some inputs to the students, how we can convert one prototype into a product. If we give inputs to students, how creatively we can think. So if this training is given, there is no wonder they start identifying small problems and they start thinking of solving it by their own. So, some such introducing some such subjects either in the curriculum or taking the events like some workshops and training programs either for students or faculty may help in that. Then creating awareness of IPs. Many a times we talk of properties, having properties. Property means like taking a land or homes or flats, or even investing in gold or shares or anything. So the the very purpose of having a property is, sometime if when we need, we can sell our property and get money out of it, or keep it reserved for the latter use. These are the mere this thing mere expectations from any kind of property which is tangible. Now come to intellectual property. The way I treat my property to let's say mortgage or to take loan, isn't it? If I want to take gold loan, I have to put my gold there and then take loan for it. For putting, I need some property, isn't it? For putting as a mortgage, I need some property. The same way, intellectual properties, when they are generated, they can be treated exactly in the same way. We can put them as a mortgage. Yes. We can showcase my intellectual property as my asset. Yes, I can get loan out of it, loan from it, isn't it? It's not a magic or anything. Actually, we can treat any intellectual property in that sense. So the only thing is people are not aware of it. So more and more awareness session. It will not happen again overnight by having one or two awareness sessions regarding IPs. Most of the times, I have heard many times people talking about publishing a patent. I it's a very common phrase being used just like that. wherein there is a whole gravity hidden in it that it is wrong. Patents are not for publication. Patents are for creation of wealth. That is a property. Do we create a property? Do we take a land or a farm or a house just to publish in paper? Like, yes, I have purchased a new house. So we don't use it that way, isn't it? We use it for creating an asset. So the same way, IPs are also not for showcasing or publicizing. It is for creation of wealth. Now, if the institute promotes students and faculty for innovation, they can spend some money as an investment and they can think of commercialization of those IPs and plan for return on this investment. Now, to think in those lines, there needs awareness in economics. In simple words, if I have to put, money management. Students should know money management. My dear students who are listening, there is a clear cut message which I wish to give you, that please understand the value of money which you get, whether you earn it or your parents are giving you. But it has got some value, and when it has got some value, you need to manage it wisely without wasting. Instead, you can invest your money, maybe for procuring some components of projects, build projects, create IPs of it, sell those IPs, or give it on license basis and start earning from very early stage. You don't need to have to become a bachelor for doing this stuff. Okay. Then when the institute, I'm extending my message to the students in this way. When the institute is implementing any program under IIC or NISP scheme, please cooperate and try to understand the gist with which they are doing it. Take its whole benefit, go deeper into the concept, try to think of multifold benefits which you can get out of it. And then, very important thing is, you can do wonders with your projects. I assume that not only civil but few other department students are also listening to this session. uh, I want you to tell you one thing very prominently. This has been a fashion these days to purchase projects from market. The project which looks bigger, which looks cozy and fashionable, you will become ready to spend any money, I mean, any amount of money for purchasing the project. Now, think on the other hand, if you have a very good idea, a problem statement, if you wish to work on that problem statement, of course, you might need some amount of money. Then start thinking of some such ways in which you can manage buying or procuring the material required for your project in least amount of money. So that comes from the money management. Okay, so you can think of taking some equipment, some gadgets from company through their CSR fund. You can request that way. You can go and ask for
आवाज येत नाही बहुतेक.
आवाज येत नाही.
मॅडम बहुतेक डिस्कनेक्ट झाल्या, नेट कनेक्टिव्हिटीचा प्रॉब्लेम असा.
सर मी कॉल करतो मॅडमना, मी
हो
विचारतो.
हो हो.
कदम सर. हॅलो कदम सर, झाला कॉन्टॅक्ट?
मॅडमना मी फोन केलता, जॉईन होतो म्हणताय. जॉईन.
सर्व विद्यार्थ्यांनी लक्ष द्यावं. मॅडम थोडे डिस्कनेक्ट झालेत, ते जॉईन होतील लगेचच. तोपर्यंत तुमचे काही क्वेश्चन्स असतील तर चॅट बॉक्स मध्ये टाका.
तुमच्याकडे काही प्रोजेक्ट्स असतील समजा की जे स्टार्टअप साठी जायचे आहे, तर त्याचं एक्झामिनेशन करूया आपण, आणि त्याच्या बिझनेसला कसं फिरवता येतील हे पण आपल्याला अभ्यास करता येईल.
येस येस सर.
कारण प्रोजेक्ट्स असणं आणि महत्वाचे त्याच्यातली व्हॅल्यू कशी आहे आणि ती कमर्शियल आहे का नाही हे बघणं अतिशय महत्वाचं आहे. मगच आपण आणि ह्यासाठी आपल्याला आपला जो प्रोजेक्ट आहे त्याचं व्हॅल्युएशन करायला लागतं. व्हॅल्युएशन करताना बऱ्याचशा गोष्टी आपल्याला लक्षात धरायला लागतात की जेणेकरून त्याचं एन्व्हायरमेंटमध्ये इफेक्ट होतो. रॉ मटेरियल आपण कुठलं वापरलं, त्याची कॉस्टिंग कसं कमी करता येईल आणि मॅक्झिमम अफोर्डेबल कॉस्टमध्ये जे सामान्य नागरिक असेल किंवा कोण घेईल तो विकत कसा घेईल, अशा पद्धतीनं घेतलं तर प्रॉडक्ट्स असतील ते बाजारामध्ये जाणं आणि कॉम्पिटिशन मध्ये सुद्धा पास होऊ शकतात. आता आम्ही 2 ठिकाणी हे स्टडी केलेलं आहे. PCCO ला एक असेच एक्झिबिशन झालेलं होतं, त्या ठिकाणी गेलेलो होतो. त्या ठिकाणचे बरेचसे प्रॉडक्ट्स होते आणि तसेच कोल्हापूरला सुद्धा एक मोठं असं एक्झिबिशन झालं होतं स्टार्टअपमध्ये, स्टार्टअपच्या संदर्भातील. आणि त्याच्यामध्ये आम्ही जेव्हा जॉईन झालो आणि सगळं एक्झामिनेशन, तेव्हा लक्षात आलं की बरेचसे प्रॉडक्ट्स आहेत परंतु त्याची कॉस्टिंग कमी होण्याकडे काही लोकांनी लक्ष दिलेलं नाही आहे. कॉस्टिंग जेवढं कमी होऊ शकतं तेवढं आपल्याला फायद्याचं हे स्टार्टअपसाठी होऊन जातं, ते अतिशय महत्वाचं आहे. आणि त्यानंतर पुढे त्याच्यासाठी स्टार्टअपला जे काही आपल्याला फंड्स लागणार आहेत ते कशा पद्धतीनं मागायचे हे सुद्धा अतिशय महत्वाचं आहे याच्यामध्ये, की स्टार्टअपसाठी आधीचा खर्च आहे तो सगळा आपला निघाला. आपल्या मनात असं येतं की सगळा खर्च आपला निघाला पाहिजे, पुढचा पण सगळं आला पाहिजे, किंवा आपण जे काही बुद्धी त्यात घातली त्याची पण व्हॅल्यू व्हायला पाहिजे. हेही बरोबर आहे, ते व्हायलाच पाहिजे. परंतु स्टार्टअप हे कशासाठी आहे? मला वाटतं मॅडम जॉईन झालेल्या आहेत, मॅडम पुढे चालू करतील.
थँक्यू सर.
हा,
Am I audible?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
you are audible.
Somehow I lost my connection and my machine is not getting connected to the network. So I just wind up with reference to my last slide, which I was displaying. Actually, my message to the students was to take their projects very seriously, start with a very good problem statement instead of purchasing a project, procure components and equipments which are required for solving that problem. So if the student can carry on with this approach, I'm very sure that not only paper publications, but also we can generate IPs, and the institutes, if they are supporting the students and faculty for innovation and startups, then I think this is actually a win-win for the students as well as for the institute to take up such problem statements, work on it, and go ahead with startups. So this is all I wanted to share. I wish to have any questions. If there are, I mean, if there are any doubts, then I'm ready to address it.
Bhakre sir, is there any question from student?
No, sir, no.
All I wanted to share.
Sir, you can proceed now. I think there is no question from students.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, madam. You have nicely explained details about the how to start startups and what are the schemes undertaken by government. Also, you have guided for the students very nicely. Definitely, some of the students will get initiated by seeing this online webinar. I am very thankful to Madam and your assisted foundation. Again, I am very thankful to Dr. Kailash Karande. I am very much thankful to Dr. H.G. Kulkarni sir. And I express my thanks to HOD, Dr. S.S. Kadam, all the faculties, and not but least all my dear student friends. I am very much thankful. Thank you. Kadam sir.
Yes, yes.
खांबे सर आहेत काय?
Kulkarni sir.
खांबे सर आहेत का म्हणून जॉईन झालेत का सिस्टेड फाउंडेशन कडून?
आहेत.
सर सर नमस्कार.
Shinde sir, I am also thankful to you.
Yeah, thank you.
थँक्यू व्हेरी मच सर. तुमच्यामुळे हा सेशन व्यवस्थित पार पडला.
हो हो, नाही आणखी काही लागलं आणि मुलांना जर काही आणखी शंका असतील तर वी विल सॉल्व इट. नो प्रॉब्लेम, विल गो कम ओव्हर देअर अँड वी कॅन सॉल्व द प्रॉब्लेम्स ऑफ स्टुडंट्स.
येस सर, येस सर, येस सर, येस सर.
Thank you, sir.
टाइम बिंग
Thank you, ma'am.
ओके सर.
टाइम बिंग थोडं पुढे आपण ज्यावेळेस हे प्रोजेक्ट पुढे येतील, काही आयडियाज पुढे येतील, त्यावेळेस पुन्हा एक वेळेस कम्युनिकेशन मध्ये राहूया.
Yes. We go ahead. As we have got you, so with MOU we can work. We are also joining in Solapur. There is pharmacy college. There also we are coming. Then in Barshi also we are coming. there is one entrepreneurship college over there in Barshi. So there also we are doing things for them. So like that we can work together on our work.
Yes, yes, sir, definitely, sir. पुढे पुढे जसे जसे जाऊ तसं ऑफलाईन किंवा ऑनलाईन मोडनी कनेक्ट मध्ये राहूयात. You are
Oh,
always, yes. I am thankful to you for your support for
yeah,
this activity
no,
and
no.
for always you are always supportive for these startups related activities, creative thinking related activities. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you one and all. Kulkarni sir,
Yes, sir.
shall
Yes, sir.
conclude this? Okay.